Now it's here queued,
อ๋อคิว
คุยก็ได้เตรียม
which means it's waiting on the system until you want to send it.
ชั้นหนึ่ง
And then when we press the green, it will actually go.
นะครับได้ประมาณ2
And we also see the queue.
Say again?
We also see the list
ไฟล์ไป
in the queue.
กลุ่มคำสั่ง
So there are two queues. Yeah, this is confusing. I picked the wrong example. I can do another one instead. Because there's two queues we're talking about. Get file. I can queue this one.
ก่อนไม่ต้องส่งมา
ก็แล้วแต่เรา
I have two commands queuing. This queuing in purple means they're waiting on the ground. The queuing we're talking about here,
ดูเราคุยเราเทียม
this queuing is a queue in the satellite.
เราเทียมอะไรตัว
So we can't see that list. We just know it exists. We will be checking Nirvana that there are files in the satellite queue, and then we can move those. This is a command to ask to move those files in the satellite to the system.
Which one has more priority? I mean, if you queue two queue, bottom and top, which one? The latest
Depends
one?
on which one you press first. So you decide that. Yeah? It's not the scheduling. Yes, it's not the scheduling. You cannot tell it like send this command in 3 minutes. No. It's just preparing. The good thing about this thing is that now, when you the options are already selected. So the time you take to select the options is not needed anymore. The time you take to search for the command in that huge list, you don't need anymore. Now it's prepared. There's a number assigned to it. It already knows what it needs to do. It just
But how you know when you execute
คำสั่งเลย
complete? I mean when your command for each command is complete. Like when you click execute and then you can move to the next command. How you know?
Yeah, okay, good question. So this times we're talking about getting feedback. There are two types of feedback here. There's the commands to the platform, which is all this we've been trying today. And there's the commands in terms of file transfer, in terms of images. Images you really need to do one at a time. We're going to see, we're going to practice. This is going to have a progress bar. So only when it says complete, then you can move it forward.
So I have to wait until it shows complete sign.
Yes, but for these ones, it will always show transmitted.
Oh, I see.
So as soon as it says transmitted, you can technically send another one. If you want to see if the satellite actually did something with it, we will check in Grafana the behavior of the satellite. So on this one, transmitted will come really fast because it's just an antenna thing. You can ask the satellite to do more things at the same time. So we can ask to move files. This takes like 5 minutes usually. We don't need to wait. You can go and do next thing. You don't, as long as it's gone, as long as it's blue for transmitted, you can do other things. On the file stuff, as long as there's a progress bar, the software itself will not let you go forward. So as long as there is a progress bar, you can still move files, you can do this one, you cannot play with another file. But then if you try, we have protected for that, you will say, the system is busy, try later. Yeah, for this one, exactly. You can click if you have one of these, one of the transfer file ones, you cannot send another one of these type. This type is one by one.
If we give an authority to many people to operate or to send a command, can we track the log that each command was sent by who?
Yeah, that's something we will have to check in exactly your implementation. Usually yes, because there's here a user, which is the password we put. But because you have an air-gapped installation, I'm not sure if it has that already. So we will have to check that with Kubus, with the third party, how they set it up. But usually you can know the person that we'll have to actually, if your question remains in terms of when you press here, because his name is already here, I'll go check. But in general, in normal operations, there is this tracking here. If everybody has a different access code and is password protected, so it also depends how you share your passwords, you'll have that tracking. Although I'm not sure how it is implemented on your version. We'll have to check that. If you're really interested, bring it up with Hongyan, and then we'll push it a bit forward. Yeah.
เราใช้คอนโทรลเลอร์แล้วแฝงมันก็ต้องล้างหมดเคลียร์
So this is a test pattern which we use during commissioning.
มันบอกเราว่า
It's just a way to transmit
มันเหมือนมีอะไรสักอย่างลอยอยู่ข้างบน
idle data to the ground to be sure that the S-band radio is working.
มันก็ต้องเป็นคำสั่ง
It has no point in itself.
เราจะสร้าง
It's just to check if the link is there. You can try it. It's also useful to not let the radio go silent. So S-band, after a certain amount of time, which is again a flight parameter that can be set, it will stop being on. So we turn on the radio, the S-band radio. If you don't use it, the radio can shut down for after 10 minutes, after half an hour. You choose the 10 minutes. If you don't want it to shut down because you're actually trying something, you can do this test pattern and we'll send idle information. It's not a critical operations. It's not something we use a lot. These are transfer files within the satellite, within two computers. And this is a possibility to update the firmware, which we probably will not need here. Now the interesting part, radios. There's a lot of settings for radios. This we might use. We start with radio on and off. So the TRX VU is usually on because you have the beacons, but for some reason you can always turn it off. You can pick which satellite you want on or off, which radio, I'm sorry. And then you pick you want it on or off, or what you setting you want on or off.
What do you turn off? Then how we can
Yes, so you're turning off the transmission, not the reception in the satellite. So there is no option here to turn off reception because then you really. Yeah, in case of if you don't want to transmit a certain day, then you can turn it
มี
off.
ปุ่ม
Just
เปิดนะเขามีเปิดเขามี power on อ่ะเขามีปุ่ม power on อ่ะ
ที่มันได้แล้วก็ต้องบินขึ้นไปอยู่สวิตช์เองถึงละ
Here's something we talked about yesterday. When we want to download data, which is really heavy, especially the whole orbit data over there, which is a lot of data, we might want to do that at a higher bit rate, at a higher data rate. So this is how we change it from a satellite. So you pick the radio, both radios have many options, and you specify the rate you want. The full rate is what I had yesterday on the board, is the 5 megasymbols per second for the S-band and 9.6 S-band, and then you have the separate ones. So usually what we do is we first change in the satellite, and then we go to the radio, as you saw yesterday, and you also change on the ground, and then you have a faster rate, or a lower rate as you wish. So you always have to change. This way you change in the satellite, and then as we saw yesterday on the signal window, you change on the ground to match.
So this one is like 4 is mean 9.6 and half and quarter and
The other ones, yeah.
And in case of S-band, it's like 5 for full,
Yeah.
and then
2.5, 1.5, 0.5.
Are there any critical command that if you play around with and then might cause a problem?
For sure, many. Now reboot is usually we do very carefully, but I mean, you
Reboot
just
is
need,
reboot the
reboot is
satellite.
restart.
The
Restart.
satellite.
You can restart different. We had this here as well. We'll go through that one. Reboot means restart. You can restart just the batteries, or that's actually not us. You can restart just the radios. If you restart the batteries, obviously the whole satellite shuts down and starts again. It's not something you would want to do a lot because it takes time to start. Like takes 4 or 5 minutes for the satellite to be fully up again. So you lose fast time. You just have 10 minutes or less to try stuff. Clearing RAM, this one up there, is really not advisable. So some of these commands we might take out if they're not used a lot. Clear RAM is probably not something you would like to do. The remove one, you need to be careful because you need to specify the file name. It's important not to delete software files.
You can delete software files.
If you know where they are, yes. So, but that's a good thing. You're not just saying delete everything. You really need to say which file. So that's another protection. You cannot just type here and say all. It doesn't work with these kind of things. You really need to specify payload data. You need to really specify what's the file. So that protects you. If you're really smart and you really want to download the one that is, I don't know what for it, the extension is for firmware, it might get you in trouble. But that's really satellite specific, and we can cover that down. So we
You don't have the command that like in Mac you have like everything dot everything.
It doesn't work here. I think it just works on the file list. So on the file list, see I have an example here. I want from the down folder, as I showed there on the picture, you can do star.star. You can get a list of all the files, but that's Armos. It's the list of the files you're getting. You're not changing anything. So this is probably the only place where you can use that. In certain things, we put the satellite really basic and you really need to know what you're doing to prevent people from just deleting.
If we accidentally delete the software, will they ask us again?
Say again?
Like they're like a fail safe. If we delete software,
Yeah?
the system will ask again.
Ah, we will confirm.
Yeah. Because sometimes.
Yeah, I think that does exist in some options. We'll see it actually now for the frequencies. There's a confirm option.
Yeah, confirm.
I'm not sure about, because I'm also not sure how easy it is to delete, because the software files are also not on the up and down folder. So automatically